I'm pleased to welcome the Global Partnerships Manager at Christian Vision, Nick Parker. Nick's going to talk to us today about digital evangelism data. Now, I don't know much about you yet, Nick, or about Christian Vision, so why don't you start by telling us a little bit about both? And thank you again for being with us today.
Oh, Chris, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today. And yeah, it's just great to be in this phenomenal company. I'm going to share my screen quickly, and then I'll do a little bit of a quick overview of who we are as a ministry, and then just really focus in on specifics in terms of what we're doing in the evangelism space. Let me just quickly do this. Sorry if you're seeing something random. Cool. Is everyone, just want to confirm everyone's seeing the slides? A little thumbs up. Chris, can you see it?
Yes, we can see.
Great. Amazing. So I work for a ministry called Christian Vision. Christian Vision has been around since 1988. In the photo, we have our founder, Lord Robert Edmiston, and his wife, Tracy. CV is an evangelism ministry. Our mission is to introduce people to Jesus and encourage them to become his true followers. We have about 350 to 400 staff and operate in about 350 countries in terms of personnel. So whether that's a physical office or just one or two people. And we outwork our mission through three very specific objectives. So the first objective being direct evangelism, the idea of introducing unreached people to Jesus. Our second objective is mobilizing Christians to share the gospel, again, predominantly in the online space. And our third objective is resourcing the local church with our free digital resources and knowledge. For the purpose of this conversation and this forum, what I really want to hone in is our first objective, which is evangelism to predominantly unreached people groups. Now, CV historically, its big focus has been evangelism through mass media. Up until about 10 years ago, our primary way of doing that was through radio. For the last 10 years, our focus has been how do we use digital technology, social media, and innovation to introduce as many people to Jesus as possible. So what I want to share with you today is that in 2022, we had more than 400 engagements with content introducing individuals to Jesus. Now, again, the focus here would be unreached people groups. So where we as a missions ministry, missions organization are practitioners of evangelism, it would be in areas of unreached people groups. The way we define an unreached people group is through the Joshua Project data, looking at any people group that's less than 2% evangelical. So where we are actively running campaigns in local languages into local people groups, it'll be anywhere where it's less than 2% evangelical. The last year we had, as I mentioned, 400 million engagements with content introducing people to Jesus. Here's a breakdown of what that looks like. On the map over here, you'll see every red dot signifies a day where we were able to introduce more than 1 million people a day to Jesus. Now, the idea of 1 million people is sometimes a bit of a false number for us because they're not necessarily unique individuals. It just means that we've had a piece of content has been viewed 1 million times. So our objective internally is 1 million of these introductions to Jesus a day, again, across social platforms. So you'll see here last year we had a number of 400 million introductions to Jesus. And just to give you an idea of where we're running these campaigns, we use Tableau to visualize all of our data. We track everything. We A/B test everything that we do. We use Tableau as a visualization. So this gives you an indication of where we're currently active in terms of evangelism activities. You'll see there's a lot of red dots in West Africa, in the Middle East, and as well as kind of in your Asia Pacific region as well. This specific screenshot is for Q4 of 2022. To take it a little bit deeper and a little bit more laser focused, what I want to do is just show you a practical example of what it is that we do and how we track the data for it. So we're going to look at Senegal, specifically at the Wolof speaking people group. What would happen is, prior to launching a campaign, we do extensive research into demographics, into literacy rates, into predominant gender, into a religious affiliation. I think I mentioned literacy rates. A big thing is we're using social media for evangelism. So also looking at cost of data, last mile technology. We take all of that into consideration, as well as working with partners who are already active on the ground in these countries to say, what has your experience been in terms of evangelism? Are there any existing church? Is there an underground church who could help us with discipleship? Are there individuals on the ground that are able to help us with translation and local contextualization? So that all happens on the front end. What we then do would go into a content production process where we would generally write a script up in English. It would then be sent to a local translator for translation. Again, through an element of partnership, we would do that. So I think SIM was actually helping us with some of the translation work in Senegal with Wolof. This script then is used to make a short video clip, normally 30 seconds. I'll play it for you guys quickly just to give you an idea. And then what would then happen is every single piece of content that we market across social platforms will have very intentional, specific calls to action. Our intention is to not only just introduce individuals to Jesus, but to encourage them to engage further. So whether that's through a Facebook Messenger, an email, or a WhatsApp conversation, we then also work with local churches and missionaries to help disciple these individuals. So what you're seeing in front of you now is just our Q4 data reports on our Facebook ads that we're running in Senegal for the Wolof people. You'll see an example here of some of the data where we have, on a 3-second view, we had 890,000 views. And in terms of a 95% video view, we had 113,000 views. Now, and CV, an internal metric that we have is, we call it introductions to Jesus. When we talk about how many people did we introduce to Jesus in a specific day, in a specific time period, what we're referring to is how many people have watched up to 95% of one of our videos. The idea is that by that time, we would have introduced an aspect of who Jesus is and encouraged them to engage further in a conversation. As I mentioned, we also actively try and connect individuals who engage with our content and respond to either a local church partner or an individual who is a missionary in the country who speaks the language. And if it's a country where there's potentially no missionaries or there's no active church, what we then do is we use quite advanced bot technology that's driven with some machine learning and AI to help converse with an individual in their local language and answer a few of their questions until we are able to connect them with someone who speaks the language and is able to disciple them in country or from afar that speaks the language. This is just a summary of our Q4 for Senegal as an example. So you'll see we had a daily introduction rate of 7,000, a total introduction to Jesus in Q4 of 656,000 people. And of that, responses were only 97. So that's become a big area of focus for us, is how do we not only get people to interact or to view our content, but to also respond and engage, and then subsequently, how do we connect them into either local churches or fellowship locations or with local missionaries working on the ground in the country. If you want to know more about who we are as Christian Vision and what we're doing, you can go to cvglobal.co, or alternatively, you can contact me directly at nickparker@cvglobal.co. It's .co, not .com or any other funky thing, just .co. I think I've missed many an email because of that. But please feel free to reach out and to ask more about what it is that we do, both in the digital space and kind of on the ground in terms of traditional missions work. Amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. Any question? We've got a moment. We could have a question for Nick. Somebody want to raise your hand?
I think there's too many questions, so everyone's scared to.
Maybe that's it. Nick, if you're able to hang around after the conference time itself, we have a free time for half an hour, and people may be able to ask you questions then. But Danny,
I love that.
Danny Weiss has just got in time. Danny, give us your question.
Thank you. I may have missed it, but how do you curate the list of people and ministries and people who can disciple? Like, how do you get that list? How do you have access to those people?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's one that we're very intentional around, because we understand that anytime we refer someone or connect someone, that ultimately we're trusting that individual to disciple things. So a lot of it comes through a very relational model of us working through churches and partners that we have in specific countries. But also a lot of the time, if it's a new country we're working into, that'll be done through partnership organizations. You know, we can throw out names like SIM or OM or IMB. Guys that have been working in these countries before will generally go in with the more established traditional ministries that come with a level of credibility. I would look to work with them in terms of local discipleship and furthering the conversation. But again, we're very intentional around that, because we also understand that we have a responsibility that when someone engages, that we want to connect them with someone who's actually going to help them on this journey of exploring faith in Jesus. So it's not a hard and fast rule. It's very relational in that sense. I know it's kind of an answer, but also kind of not an answer. But I think when it comes to digital, this is a conversation that a lot of people are also trying to figure out. What does that next step look like? So yeah, it's a journey that we're on as well. I also want to just add that something that we are very intentional around as a ministry is not just kind of your traditional digital evangelism in terms of ads. We're also very intentional around innovation. So we're looking at now, how do we leverage technologies like ChatGPT? How do we, be active and involved in areas like Web3 and stuff? So we're very intentional about kind of future-proofing the missions landscape as well. So I'm also happy to answer any questions that people have around kind of the technological horizon and what's coming in a sense in terms of innovation as well. So
thank you very much, Nick.